As the president gets set to address the Conservative Political Action Conference on Friday, also known as CPAC, Americans remain divided on the job he's doing in office. The latest CBS News poll out Thursday shows that just 39% of Americans approve of Mr. Trump's performance to date, while 51% disapprove of the job he is doing. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. So here with me to take a deeper dive into the polls is CBS News Elections Director Anthony Salvanto. Good to see you.
Vlad, how are you?
So let's talk about this. A ton of numbers came out today. I want you to take us through them, but start with the economy because 61% of Americans polled say the economy is in good shape.
Right, and that's actually the highest number that we have found in this poll since before the Great Recession. So that optimism, that state of the economy number, that's up. The reason it's up is that Republicans now say that they think the economy is in good shape. And that's a big, big switch from right before President Trump took office, where before that, Republicans much less likely, 30 points less likely, to say the economy was in good shape. What you learn from that, Vlad?
Which is interesting because the economy, it's only been a month. It's December 2016.
Well, exactly. But see, this is where you learn a little bit about how people answer poll questions and also how they make decisions. So the economy, you would think it's this objective thing, right? It's the gas prices and the stock market and unemployment and all of that. Well, it is, but for a lot of people, it's also about how much optimism they feel and whether or not their person is in office, is running the country. So we've seen this increasingly over time where partisan views get inserted into broader measures about how the country is doing, and this is one prime example.
Really fascinating. All right, let's talk about immigration. The poll found that 60% of Americans feel that illegal immigrants here in the U.S. should be able to stay and apply for citizenship. Break down those numbers for us.
Right. Here again, you see big divides. While it is true that most folks say there should be some kind of path to citizenship or at least some kind of a work visa, but the Republican base is much more in favor of what you might call a deportation or having folks who are here illegally be forced to leave. And in fact, although about 40% of Republicans would also favor some kind of a work visa, there is that base, that conservative base, that is the most strongly in favor of deportation. So when you look at what's going on now, when you look at the policies, you know, who supports them, definitely that Republican base is going to be strongly in favor.
What's really fascinating about these polls is how the Republican base is reacting to Russia. There are a lot of questions from Democrats about the Trump administration and its ties to Russia. 44% of Americans say the approach to Russia is just right. Break down those numbers.
Here again, same story, common thread through all of this, partisanship, where you find Republicans much more likely to say, in fact, overwhelmingly likely to say, that they think the president's approach to Russia is about right. And diametrically opposed to that, Democrats, who overwhelmingly say that he's being too friendly, that the approach is not right. So you get a certain they're following their president. They're following the president on this. And that's also a shift that we have seen since President Trump took office. If you look at these numbers going back further, views among Republicans towards Russia, much more mixed.
I really do find that number fascinating, that 44% of Americans say his approach to Russia is just right, because even Republican legislators have said, for example, John McCain, that Vladimir Putin's a thug. Even Bill O'Reilly, when he interviewed the president, said Vladimir Putin's a killer. The president responded that we've done some crazy things too, but it's just surprising.
And in fact, we asked about Vladimir Putin in the poll, and more Republicans have moved from they're not favorable towards Vladimir Putin, but they are more undecided now than they have been. So even they've sort of moved to this sort of neutral position. Again, you know, part of foreign policy is people aren't necessarily always geopolitical experts, so they do follow their leaders, and that makes sense to do that in a lot of respects. But in this case, too, you see that partisanship coming in there as well, following their president, at least for the time.
Yeah, I'm going to read this because, so in May of 2014, Democrats and Republicans held similar views of Vladimir Putin. Today, unfavorable views of Putin have risen 12 points among Democrats, while unfavorable views of Putin among Republicans have dropped 13.
Right.
Partisanship.
Partisanship.
It's a beautiful thing.
Partisanship.
No, it's not.
Well, it's a real thing.
Right,
I mean, it's a real thing. It is what almost defines this country's politics today, and so you just have to reckon with it. I mean, to the extent that people are paying attention, that they know where their party or their party's president stands on an issue, that means they're engaged. But to the extent that they're then following or taking their cues from that, means it just underlines how much power, you talk about the bully pulpit, you talk about the presidency and what that can do, especially for a base. And we know that Donald Trump supporters consistently tell us that they follow his lead, that they think that he is the one telling the truth on policies and following that. So it just underlines how much power that bully pulpit really has.
It'll be interesting to see going forward if the president is able to expand beyond that base to people that are not his hardcore followers, which most presidents try to do. At this point, he doesn't seem that interested in doing it. He's talked about uniting the country, but from all intents and purposes, what we see here is more of a solidification of his base as opposed to an expansion.
And that is precisely the question. And I think even as you look ahead to next week, where he gives his address to Congress, right? We know from this poll and from others that there is a large group of people out there who are kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. And even in this poll, you hear folks say they have confidence in him in improving the economy. They're optimistic about what he can do to create jobs. But they also don't yet think he has a clear plan to do it. Right. So they're in that wait-and-see mode. They're waiting to see what he does, and that's separate from that base that's with him all the way. If he can bring some of those people over, I suspect his approval ratings could grow, but that's the key question. Does he go beyond what he currently has? And what he has is solid. Does he go beyond it?
Wait and see. Anthony Salvanto, always fascinating insights. Appreciate it, man. Thanks,
man.